There is a man sitting at the edge of dawn. The light has not yet decided whether it belongs to night or morning. In that fragile hour, he sharpens his sword. Each stroke of metal against stone hums like a thought trying to remember itself. He breathes slowly, but his mind races ahead, toward unfinished duties, old regrets, future worries. The blade slips, and a small line of red appears on his thumb. He stares at it, surprised not by the pain, but by how easily attention can fracture. We like to call this failure stupidity. But what if it isn't? What if the true dullness of mind comes not from lack of knowledge, but from being absent in the very act of living? You read, you scroll, you talk, and yet you are never fully here. The mind wanders like a ghost, touching everything but holding nothing. Presence is the discipline we've forgotten. It is the art of keeping the mind where the hands are. The warrior sharpens not only his weapon, but himself. When his breath aligns with motion, the world quiets. The sound of steel becomes steady again, simple, whole, alive. Maybe intelligence has never been about how much you know, but how deeply you see. The smartest part of you isn't the one that calculates. It's the one that notices. The rust on the blade, the coolness of the air, the heartbeat beneath the noise. When the warrior looks up, the sun finally breaks the horizon. Light touches his face, and for a brief moment he feels the silence between thoughts, a space so clear it almost frightens him. That is where presence lives, not in effort, not in thought, but in the pause that holds everything still. So ask yourself, what if you're not stupid at all, just distracted? In the ancient world, men rose with the sun not to conquer it, but to align with its rhythm. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's first battle each morning is against the temptation to drift, to surrender the mind to comfort, and forget the purpose of being awake. He called it self-command, the art of governing one's thoughts before they scatter into the world. That art has become almost extinct. Now the cities never sleep. Neon replaces dawn. Screens replace the horizon. You don't sharpen swords anymore. You sharpen opinions, reactions, notifications. The war hasn't ended. It has only changed shape. It's no longer fought in silence, but in speed. You tell yourself you're busy because you're important. You scroll because you need to stay informed. You multitask because you can. But beneath that hum of motion, something hollow vibrates. You feel it in the way your attention breaks mid-sentence, in the way your thoughts flicker before they form. Your brain, like the warrior's trembling hand, keeps slipping. The modern world worships activity like a god. The faster you move, the more worthy you appear. But this god is cruel. It never blesses, it only demands. It tells you that if you pause, you'll fall behind. If you rest, you'll be forgotten. So you obey. You run toward things that vanish the moment you touch them. Messages, metrics, moments. You mistake movement for meaning. Marcus would not recognize this civilization. He warned that the mind must be like a fortress, guarded against invasion. But we have left the gates wide open. Notifications march in like soldiers. Every vibration is a siege. Attention, the rarest resource of consciousness, is traded away for digital applause. Psychologists now call it attention fragmentation, a polite term for mental exile. Studies show that the average human attention span has shrunk to less than that of a goldfish. But numbers don't capture the ache of it, the quiet grief of losing the ability to linger. We have become creatures of the click, constantly stimulated, rarely satisfied. In the glow of endless motion, stillness feels suspicious. To slow down seems like failure. To sit in silence feels unnatural, even threatening. And yet deep down, you know that motion without meaning is just noise. The faster you move, the less you see. The more you consume, the less you feel. Presence, in this world, has become an act of rebellion. It is the refusal to be carried by the current of distraction. It is the moment you stop chasing and start observing. The way light falls across your desk, the sound of your own breathing, the small pause between heartbeats. This rebellion is quiet but radical. It asks nothing and offers everything. It gives you back your own attention, the one thing that was always yours but rarely held. So look around. The city pulses. The timelines flow. You are surrounded by movement, but stillness waits behind your eyes. The question is no longer whether you can think. It's whether you can stop long enough to see that you're alive. The morning fog lingers in the training field. The warrior stands alone, sword in hand, breath visible in the cold. He takes a step, swings, and misses. Not because the blade failed him, but because thought did. A fraction of a second, an idea, a fear, a self-judgment, and the blade loses its line. He stops, breathes, watches the mind that betrayed him. This is the invisible war, not against the world, but within it. Every human lives this duel daily. Your attention reaches for clarity, and your distraction pulls it back into fog. You chase focus like prey through the forest of your own thinking. The hunter and the hunted share the same heartbeat. The philosopher Epictetus warned, "You cannot control what happens, only how you respond." But what happens when your response is hijacked before you even see it coming? When the hand twitches before you know you've chosen to move? Modern neuroscience has a quiet way of confirming the Stoics. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational direction, is fragile. Every ping, every scroll, every unfinished thought fragments its rhythm, and with each fracture, presence leaks out of you like air from a punctured lung. You're left gasping for clarity in a mind too busy surviving itself. The warrior trains again. Every swing must be one thought, one motion. If the mind moves faster than the body, he misses. If the body moves faster than awareness, he injures himself. Only when breath, awareness, and motion become inseparable does the sword find its mark. Flow theory, as modern psychology names it, is nothing new. Csikszentmihalyi described it as a state where action and awareness merge, but to the Stoics and Zen monks, it was simply alignment with reality. When the mind stops chasing itself, intelligence stops being something you use. It becomes something you are. You stop trying to control and start to perceive. But our civilization runs on interruption. We've built empires on fractured attention, notifications, multitasking, constant context switching. Your phone vibrates, your brain shifts. The prefrontal cortex must reboot every time, and each reboot costs seconds of re-entry, seconds that, multiplied across a day, dissolve hours of potential depth. Psychologists call it attention residue, but it feels like something deeper. The exhaustion of a mind hunting itself for peace. Watch the warrior again. He stops mid-swing. Eyes close. The sword hangs, suspended in silence. This pause, this sacred stillness, is the birthplace of mastery. In that quiet, you can feel time itself slow. Thoughts still move, but they lose their teeth. Awareness becomes wide, patient, alert. Presence is not passive. It's precision embodied. It's the discipline of watching the hunter without firing the arrow. When you see the mind chase distraction, you don't need to stop it. You just need to see it clearly. Awareness itself dissolves the chase, because the mind cannot hunt what the heart has already embraced. Flow emerges not from control, but from surrender to rhythm, from letting breath lead, and thought follow, from understanding that intelligence doesn't live in noise, it lives in the clear space between impulses. The warrior exhales, strikes again, and this time, the blade sings. No thought, no hesitation, just movement, pure and whole. You feel it too when you lose yourself in something you love. Writing, running, listening, creating. That moment when time disappears and you become what you're doing. That is presence disguised as performance. And yet, most of us live as if life were a series of browser tabs, each one half open, each thought unfinished, each moment abandoned before it becomes real. Here's the paradox. You're not stupid. You're fragmented. Your brilliance is divided across too many simultaneous selves. One self checks messages. One self remembers pain. One self rehearses tomorrow. And the one that could simply be here is drowned beneath the others. The warrior bows to silence, not as defeat, but as understanding. He realizes the real opponent was never distraction itself. It was his refusal to see it with compassion. Presence is not achieved through violence against the mind. It is cultivated like the edge of a sword. Mani, not by cutting harder, but by sharpening with patience. Each breath is a whetstone, each pause, a stroke against steel. Slowly the reflection returns. You see your face in the blade, clear, unbroken, awake, and in that reflection you no longer see a hunter or a hunted. Only awareness, standing still. The fog has lifted. The training field glows with the first light of dawn. The warrior kneels, the sword resting across his lap, no longer an object of effort, but an instrument of silence. His breath moves through him like wind through reeds. Each inhale polishes awareness. Each exhale empties noise. There is no battle now, only rhythm. The world hasn't changed, only he has. Once, he trained to conquer distraction. Now, he trains to disappear within the act. The sword gleams not because it is sharper, but because he finally stopped trying to sharpen it. It is the stillness between strokes that forges mastery, not the strike itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul." He was speaking of this, the interior stillness where thought ceases to shout, and reality begins to whisper. The voiceover lowers, steady and clear. Intelligence is not the accumulation of thought, it is the refinement of perception. You become intelligent not by thinking more clearly, but by thinking less clearly. Every thought that arises adds friction. Every pause that deepens removes it. What remains is awareness so pure it doesn't need explanation. It simply knows. The warrior stands again, not with tension, but with belonging. His steps align with his heartbeat. The blade's weight no longer feels like metal, it feels like breath. He raises it once, then lowers it slowly, not to strike, but to see. The reflection of the morning sun slides across the steel, and for a moment, it looks like light itself is bowing. In this image, everything converges: the Bushido Code's reverence for silence, the Stoic devotion to inner order, and the neuroscientist's chart of flow state. 3 languages, same truth. Presence is intelligence embodied. Bushido taught, the way of the warrior is found in death. But death, in this sense, is not the end of life. It's the death of noise, the death of unnecessary movement, of restless comparison, of the inner commentary that fractures being. In that death, the warrior finds life undivided. Modern world praises quick thinkers, but the timeless world honors clear seers. Clarity has no hurry. Stillness has no fear. When the mind stops, scrambling for control, understanding arises like dawn, inevitable, gentle, complete. This is the paradox at the center of every discipline. The more you chase control, the less you hold. The more you release, the more precision you gain. Presence doesn't sharpen the sword. Presence is the edge. The camera moves close. We hear the sound of steel resting against wood. The warrior bows, and with that simple act, intelligence and humility merge. He finally grasps what all his training concealed, that the sword was never meant to win battles outside, it was meant to silence the battle within. You can almost feel his realization move through your own body, the loosening of something that's been clenched for years, a recognition that your exhaustion never came from effort, but from resistance to the moment itself. Stillness doesn't erase motion, it guides it. It doesn't mute the world, it tunes it, like a musician finding pitch through silence. You find your mind's true frequency by listening beneath thought. That's where the best decisions are born, the most elegant words emerge, the most brilliant insights arrive, not from thinking harder, but from thinking less. Clearly, he sheaths the sword. The sound of metal sliding into its scabbard feels final, sacred, a punctuation mark at the end of a long inner sentence. No more questions, no more theories, just breath, and the quiet authority of being present. The camera lingers on his eyes. They do not burn with intensity anymore. They shine with calm comprehension, the kind that doesn't seek to impress, only to understand. The voiceover closes softly. You don't become wise by knowing everything. You become wise by no longer needing to. Because wisdom isn't stored in memory, it's felt in awareness. When the sword becomes still, the mind follows, and when the mind becomes still, life sharpens itself. The warrior no longer trains, he observes. His movements have become prayers written in air, invisible, precise, alive. The world has not changed its noise, but it no longer reaches him, because now he sees, not with the eyes that seek to understand, but with the awareness that simply witnesses. To see is not to look. Looking is hunger. Seeing is stillness. When you look, you chase meaning. When you see, meaning reveals itself. This is the discipline of seeing, the art of meeting reality without distortion. It is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't preaching detachment. He was teaching perception, to see the storm, yet not become it. The camera drifts through ordinary life, A man scrolling through endless feeds, a woman lost in anxious thought, a student switching tasks faster than he can breathe. They are all hunting control in fragments, their attention shattered across screens, timelines, and desires. But presence doesn't chase, it receives. The voiceover continues, almost whispering. Real seeing begins when judgment ends, when the mind no longer demands that the moment be different, when the warrior lowers his sword not out of defeat, but because he understands the battle was never real. There's a strange kind of freedom in that. Realization. You stop needing to fix yourself. You stop performing intelligence. You stop proving you're not stupid, because stupidity was never the absence of knowledge. It was the absence of attention. And when you pay attention, truly, quietly, fully, you begin to notice the world as it actually is. The sound of leaves brushing against stone, the rhythm of your own heartbeat echoing in a room, the faint scent of morning when the air still remembers night. Each detail is a teacher, each breath, a lesson in seeing. Psychologists call it attentional control. Zen calls it mind like water. The Bushido calls it mushin, no mind. Different languages, same truth. To see clearly, you must stop naming everything you see. Only then can life step forward and introduce itself again. The warrior walks now, unarmed. His hands are open. There is no need to guard, no need to chase, no need to prove. Every motion flows from awareness, not as performance, but as participation. He looks at the sunrise, and for the first time, he doesn't call it beautiful. He just lets beauty happen. That's the final discipline, to see without trying to see, to live without rehearsing life. The voiceover slows, words almost dissolving into silence. Presence is not a state you reach. It's the moment you stop trying to reach anything. To see is to surrender is to return, and to return is to remember. You were never stupid, you were simply distracted. The mind that learns to be still becomes the eye through which truth sees itself. Discipline has always been misunderstood. We picture it as a clenched jaw, a life stripped of comfort, a war against desire. But true discipline isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the quiet choice to see clearly when everything in you wants to blur. Marcus Aurelius never wrote about punishing the body. He wrote about purifying perception. He asked himself each morning, what can I control? What must I release? This was not rigidity. It was refinement, a sharpening of sight until the unnecessary fell away and the essential remained. In the same way, the Bushido warrior did not train to become cold. He trained to become awake. Each stroke of the sword was not a rehearsal for violence, but a meditation on precision, on being so completely here that hesitation vanished. The discipline of presence begins the same way, not with grand gestures, but with micro-rituals. You breathe before you speak. You pause before you react. You notice the moment your mind begins to scatter, and gently call it back, not with force, but with understanding. Each pause is a reclaiming, each breath, a boundary drawn between awareness and chaos. Modern neuroscience confirms what the ancients already knew. When you sustain attention on one thing, a movement, a sound, a thought, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the region that governs focus, emotional regulation, and decision-making. Repeated moments of presence literally rewire the brain. This is neuroplasticity. In motion, the rewiring of chaos into coherence. The brain becomes what it practices, and when you practice stillness, you sculpt a mind that no longer trembles at every disturbance, a mind that does not chase distraction, but observes it, and remains unmoved. This is why discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It creates freedom, because clarity liberates. When you know what truly matters, you stop wasting energy on everything that doesn't. Imagine beginning your day not by reaching for your phone, but by taking one silent breath. You feel the air enter. You feel it leave, and in that single cycle, you have already reclaimed ownership of your attention. Before a difficult conversation, pause long enough to feel your body's tension. Notice the heat rising, the urge to defend, the tightening chest. That moment of awareness, that half-second of seeing, is the birthplace of mastery. You are no longer reacting. You are responding. And that shift, invisible to the world, changes the entire architecture of your mind. Marcus called this temperance, the art of balance. To him, it was not about denial, but alignment. he wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Every word, every action, filtered through the clarity of presence. In modern language, this is cognitive coherence. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions begin to move in unison. No more internal noise. No more divided attention. The warrior, the philosopher, the scientist all speak of the same thing under different names: to act without inner contradiction. Clarity does not mean control. It means cooperation with what is real. When you practice presence, you stop wrestling the moment into shape. You allow it to show its shape to you. This is what turns life into craft. When the carpenter feels the grain of wood, when the artist loses the sense of self in brushstroke, when the parent listens instead of waiting to speak, discipline becomes devotion. Work becomes worship. The longer you live this way, the more your nervous system learns that peace is possible. The stress circuits calm. The dopamine cravings quiet. The body no longer interprets stillness as danger. It recognizes it as home. And in that home, intelligence awakens, not as overthinking, but as understanding without effort. You begin to know when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when silence will say more. You become both calm and capable, a rare combination. In a world addicted to reaction, the discipline of clarity isn't harsh, it's merciful. It ends the war inside. It lets you live with both precision and ease. So when the noise rises again, as it will, do not fight it. Return to your breath. Return to your seeing. Return to the simple awareness that was here before the noise began. That's all presence ever asked of you, not perfection. Just return. The sword rests beside him now. The stone is still. The morning has opened fully, flooding the earth with the soft gold of beginning. The warrior sits unmoving, his hands relaxed on his knees. For the first time, there is no urge to sharpen, to fix, to prepare. He has realized the blade was never dull. Only his mind was restless. He watches the sun rise without the need to name it. Each ray feels earned, as if clarity itself has broken through the horizon. The silence around him is not empty. It hums with understanding. The mind that once hunted every thought has finally grown quiet. This is not stupidity. It's wisdom without struggle, intelligence without noise. The kind Marcus Aurelius wrote of when he said that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and when the thoughts are still, the soul regains its natural tone. The color of peace. We've spent centuries worshiping cleverness, inventing, optimizing, accelerating. But in all our noise, we forgot the simplest truth. The world doesn't need smarter minds. It needs present ones, minds that can listen, minds that can see, minds that can stay. Zen monks speak of mushin, the empty mind, not blank, not void, but free. Free from the clutter that clouds perception. Free from the constant commentary that fractures awareness. In that freedom, intelligence shines on its own. It does not need effort to think. It needs permission to rest. The warrior closes his eyes. The same breath that once trembled now moves like a quiet tide. He can feel the world breathing with him. Wind across the grass, light on the blade, the faint rustle of unseen wings. Everything aligned, everything whole. He remembers the years spent chasing thought, mistaking movement for mastery. Now he understands what the ancient disciplines were pointing toward. Not control, not suppression, but harmony. The Stoic endures, the monk observes, the scientist measures, but all three meet at the same door, the one that opens only when the mind stops forcing it. Awareness is the final art. It turns life into something sacred simply by being here for it. The taste of tea, the sound of footsteps, the warmth of sunlight on the skin. These are not distractions from purpose. They are the purpose. You don't have to conquer thought to be intelligent. You have to witness it, to let it rise and fall like the sound of steel meeting stone, to trust that clarity will return the moment you stop chasing it. The warrior stands. The blade catches the light one last time, gleaming with stillness rather than sharpness. He walks toward the open field, each step measured, effortless. The world feels different, not because it changed, but because he did. The mind that learns to rest becomes luminous. The heart that stops fighting becomes wise. And in that quiet, you finally understand you were never stupid, you were never lost, you were simply elsewhere. Now, you are here. The screen fades to dawn. The soft sound of breath remains. Presence, at last, has spoken. The camera drifts slowly upward, above the warrior, above the valley, above the faint shimmer of dawn. What was once the echo of steel and breath now dissolves into something quieter, more spacious. Below, humanity stirs, millions of silhouettes sharpening invisible blades, phones glowing in palms, fingers tapping, minds racing, a planet humming with urgency, each person cutting through noise, searching for meaning in fragments of light. They think they are chasing brilliance, but in truth, they are chasing silence. Every scroll, every argument, every restless pursuit is a whisper from the same source. Be here. Be now. The image widens, oceans reflecting cities, mountains breathing clouds. A single thread connects it all. The longing to be awake in this moment. The discipline of presence, not performance. The intelligence of stillness, not stimulation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. But few ever visit that place. We mistake movement for life, reaction for awareness, knowledge for wisdom. And yet, the most profound knowing is not found in thought. It's revealed in the space between them. The warrior, now seated beneath a blooming tree, no longer sharpens his sword. His eyes rest on the horizon. The blade reflects the sunrise, not as a weapon, but as a mirror. It gleams quietly as if whispering, 'You were never dull. You were only distracted.' A soft wind passes. Leaves tremble. Breath deepens. This is not an ending, but a remembering. We began with noise, with the chaos of self-doubt, the ache of trying to prove intelligence in a shouting world. We end with knowing that presence itself is genius, that attention is love, that the world doesn't need more cleverness, it needs consciousness. The frame fades toward light. No music now, just the rhythm of breathing. The mind stops trying to understand and begins to simply see. As the screen dissolves into silence, a single line appears, barely audible, like thought dissolving into air. From noise to knowing, from motion to meaning, from mind to presence, this is the way home. Fade out, the sound of a calm exhale. Then, nothing.